In this video, I'll be giving you my full review of the Haworth Soji. Throughout this video, we'll be taking a look at factors such as design, build quality, comfort, and overall value to help you decide if this chair is going to be the right fit for you. Now, before we dive in, I just want to mention that this video is not sponsored. I purchased this chair with my own money, so you can trust that you're getting my completely unbiased opinion. That said, if you find this review helpful and want to check out the Soji for yourself, I'll have affiliate links in the description below. Please consider using these links as they really help support the channel at no extra cost to you. So with that out of the way, let's jump right into the review, starting with the design. So right off the bat, you'll notice that the Soji has a sleek and modern aesthetic that really sets it apart from most office chairs in this price range. I really like the different color options that Haworth offers for this chair. You've got choices like stone, ocean, clay, and juniper, which really kind of fits into this theme of nature. I like these color options a lot because they're not too over the top and gaudy, while at the same time not being boring. This color palette is actually pretty consistent with Haworth's overall design philosophy. They seem to be going for a more calming, nature-inspired look across their entire product line. It's a nice touch if you're trying to create a more relaxed, less corporate feeling in your workspace. Overall, I'd say Haworth has done a great job with the Soji's design. It manages to look professional and stylish without being flashy or over the top. So whether you're setting up your home office or refreshing a corporate space, the Soji's design is versatile enough to fit in just about anywhere. When it comes to materials and build quality, the Haworth Soji is definitely built well considering the price. It's very evident that with the Soji, we're kind of jumping up a tier when compared to the more budget options. The frame is primarily made of high quality plastic. Now I know some people hear plastic and immediately think cheap, but that is not the case for the Soji. The dense plastic feels very sturdy and durable. I've been using this chair for a while now and I haven't noticed any creaking or wobbling in the frame. It's also just a common trend that you'll see in a lot of ergonomic chairs these days, even the high-end chairs where we're seeing more flexible plastic being used and less metal. The Soji features a mesh backrest. It's very breathable, so if you're someone who tends to sit hot, then you're really going to like this backrest. The mesh is pretty high quality and I think it's very comfortable. They also have a full grain leather option as an upgrade, but that'll cost you basically double the price and will sacrifice on that breathability, so I personally wouldn't choose that option with the Soji. As for the casters, the Soji comes with soft casters, which is nice because you won't need to worry about it scratching up your hardwood floors. And I find it to be okay on carpets as well. Overall, I'd say the materials and build quality of the Haworth Soji are solid. There aren't any noticeable low quality components that stick out, and everything feels well put together. It strikes a good balance between quality and cost, which is exactly what you want in an office chair at this price point. Now, is the Soji going to be the same level of quality as like a top-of-the-line Herman Miller? Definitely not, but for a mid-range office chair, the Soji is built really well and is definitely something you could use for 8+ hours every single day with no issues. And it's backed by a 12-year warranty, which is the same warranty that you're going to get on Haworth's flagship models like the Fern, so you know that Haworth really kind of stands behind their build quality. Now let's talk about the overall comfort of the chair. I like to break this down into 3 main categories: the seat, the backrest, and the armrests. Starting with the seat, I think the seat comfort is probably the most important aspect of an office chair. It's the first thing you'll feel when you sit down in the chair, and it has to support all of your body weight, so if the seat is not comfortable for you, then it's a complete deal breaker. The first thing you'll notice about the Soji seat is the shape. It's relatively flat with a waterfall front edge. I personally like the flat seat shape since it makes it feel a bit more spacious compared to chairs with a more contoured seat shape. This is good if you're someone with wider hips or you like to cross your legs while you're sitting. The waterfall front edge design makes it so your legs don't press against the front edge of the seat, promoting better circulation. When it comes to the foam padding itself, I definitely say it's a firm sit, but still very comfortable and supportive. It's firm enough so you don't sink in or feel trapped, but it's got enough give to keep you comfortable. It definitely feels like you're sitting on top of the seat pad rather than in it, which makes it easy to shift positions throughout the day. It actually reminds me a lot of the Haworth Fern seat pad, only a little flatter and less give around the tailbone area. The Haworth Soji has a seat pan depth adjustment feature, which you can access by pulling up the tab on the left side and jutting your hips out. You've got a good range of motion here to accommodate various leg lengths. As a rule of thumb, when you're sitting in the chair, you want your legs to be at about a 90-degree angle, and you want to be able to fit 2 to 3 fingers between the front of the seat and the inside of your knee. Even if you're on the shorter side like me, it's nice being able to extend the seat pan because it makes the seat more spacious. This is good if you're someone who likes to sit cross-legged while you're lounging. One thing I did notice is that when you extend the seat pan all the way out, it creates a pretty big gap between the seat and the backrest, which you can feel when you sit deep back into the chair. The shape of the seat kind of tapers off at the back, so it kind of feels like your butt is hanging off the back of the seat. Now personally, I really only notice this when the seat pan is all the way out and I'm actually reclining in the chair, but definitely something to note if you're on the taller end and need to extend the seat pan all the way out just for normal use. The Soji has an optional forward tilt feature available for an additional cost. This is meant to allow you to sit forward in a perched position. I don't really think this feature is necessary in my opinion, since the neutral position is upright enough. Now I don't actually have this feature on my Soji, but I do have the forward tilt on my Haworth Soji, and I never actually found myself using it. Overall, I'd say the seat comfort on the Haworth Soji is pretty impressive for the price point. It's well designed, supportive, and offers enough adjustability to suit most users. In my opinion, it definitely punches above its weight class, and I find it to be pretty comparable to seats on Haworth's higher end chairs like the Soji and Fern, which cost twice as much. Moving on to the backrest, I think the Soji's backrest is very comfortable. The mesh is pretty high quality and provides excellent support while still maintaining a good balance of elasticity. The mesh is not super taut and bouncy like the Herman Miller Aeron, giving you a bit of a softer feel. You kind of sink into the mesh a bit, but it's still firm enough to feel supportive. The mesh is pretty coarse to the touch. It's not uncomfortable by any means, but if you're someone who likes to sit with your bare back against the chair or tend to wear loose woven clothing, then you might find it to be a bit scratchy. Just something to keep in mind. Moving on, let's take a look at the lumbar support. For $35, the Soji offers a height adjustable lumbar support add-on. Now, I don't think it's completely necessary since the natural shape of the backrest is already pretty supportive, but if you're someone who likes more aggressive lumbar, then I definitely think the lumbar support add-on is worth it. It covers a pretty large surface area, so it's supportive throughout your entire lower back region. One downside to the lumbar support is that there's actually no padding on it. It's made entirely of plastic, so some people might find it to be a bit pokey. There's also no depth adjustment. It's only height adjustable, so you don't really have any control over how aggressive the lumbar support feels. Now, one issue I have with most mesh office chairs in general is the lack of flexibility. Mesh chairs typically need to have a rigid frame for them to wrap the mesh around. One thing I noticed is that when you sink into the mesh, you can feel the frame edges when you're shifting around in the chair. Now, it's not really noticeable when you're just sitting in the chair normally, but I do notice it when I'm stretching or moving around a lot in the chair. It's definitely not as bad as some lower end mesh chairs I've tried with looser mesh, but still something I need to point out. Moving on to the Recline, I think the Soji's Recline is very good. It has a synchro tilt mechanism that feels really smooth and keeps you in an ergonomic position throughout the entire recline motion. It's also a pretty deep recline, which makes it great when you're just kind of kicking back and lounging. Now, the Recline is not going to be at the same level as some of the higher end chairs like the Haworth Fern or the Herman Miller Aeron, but I definitely think it's one of the best reclines I've used at this price point. One thing to note is that you only have two locking positions. You can lock it upright or have it set to a full recline. There's no tilt limiter with set backstop positions like you'll find on higher end chairs, and you also can't lock the chair in a recline position. Personally, the lack of tilt limiter isn't really an issue for me since I never really use that feature on any chair. I prefer to just have the Recline fully open and adjust the tilt tension to give me more of a suspended feeling while reclining. Now, speaking of tilt tension, I really like the way it's implemented on the Soji. It's more of a crank rather than a knob. It's located in a really convenient spot, so it's easy to adjust while you're sitting in it. It's also super easy to turn and feels really responsive. You really only need to give it a few turns before you feel a huge difference in the recline resistance. This is good because I usually just like to tighten the tilt tension to sit upright rather than actually locking the chair in an upright position. Overall, I'd say the backrest on the Haworth Soji is very impressive considering the price of the chair. It's supportive, comfortable for long sitting sessions, and offers enough adjustability to suit most people's needs. While it may not have all the fancy bells and whistles like a high-end chair like the Fern, it definitely gets the job done and then some. Now, moving on, let's talk about the armrests. The Soji has 4-way adjustable armrests with height, width, depth, and pivot adjustments. I'd say these armrests are generally pretty good. In my opinion, they're probably better than any other chair I've tested for this $500 price range. You have pretty generous adjustment ranges, making it easy to get them into a comfortable position. The arms go low enough so that you can get them out of the way when you're not using them, and I can push the chair under the desk to save space. One thing I'm not the biggest fan of are the actual adjustment mechanisms other than the height adjustments. The width and pivot adjustments are pretty rigid and feel clunky to adjust. They require just a bit too much force to move in my opinion, which makes them hard to adjust on the fly or to get them into the exact position that I want. And the depth adjustments are the opposite. I find these to be a bit too loose, which is annoying for me because they kind of slip around whenever I try to push off the armrest when I'm getting out of the chair. That said, once everything is adjusted the way I like, they're pretty comfortable to use and I don't really have any issues with bumping things out of place. One thing to note is that when you recline in the chair, you'll notice a pretty big gap between the arms and the backrest. This is because the armrests are attached to the seat rather than the backrest, so the arms don't actually recline with you. This isn't uncommon in office chairs, but definitely worth mentioning if you tend to recline a lot. Now, when it comes to the arm pads themselves, I'd say they're pretty comfortable overall. The pads have a contoured shape with waterfall edges, which is a nice touch. This design means your forearms won't dig into the edges of the arm pads. The pads are softer in the center and harder at the edges, giving you a bit more cushioning when you're digging your elbows into them. Now overall, while the armrests on the Haworth Soji aren't perfect, they're definitely good considering the price of the chair. Definitely not to the same level as the Haworth Fern's armrest though. I do wish Haworth would offer the same armrest as the Fern on other models, similar to how Steelcase offers the same armrest as the Leap on the EMEA and the Series 2. But every Haworth model has a different armrest, and I'd only consider the Fern's armrest to actually be top tier. Now let's talk about value. Now, is the Haworth Soji a good value and ultimately worth your money? Let's start by talking about the policies you're going to get. So the Soji is part of Haworth's performance seating line, so you're going to get a full 12-year warranty and 30-day return window. This is the exact warranty that you're going to get with Haworth's higher end models like the Fern, which costs twice the price. This makes the chair a really good investment because you'll basically be guaranteed a good chair for a long time rather than having to replace cheaper chairs every few years or so. Also, I think the chair is just built really well. It uses high quality components across the board, so it's really durable and feels premium. It's also just a comfortable chair to sit in. Now, it's nothing that'll completely blow your mind, but I have no major issues with the chair and it's just solid all around. Overall, I think the Soji is one of the best values you can get in an office chair. There's really not too many close competitors in this price range. If you want something better than the Soji, then you'll need to start spending upwards of $1,000 on something like a Haworth Soji or a Steelcase Leap. So would I personally recommend the Haworth Soji? Absolutely. If you're just looking for a really good office chair that'll last you a long time, but don't want to break the bank, then the Soji is probably my go-to recommendation if you want a brand new chair. I think it sits in that perfect sweet spot in terms of price versus performance. It gives you like 85% of what you would get from something like a Haworth Fern, but at half the price. And coming from someone who does have access to the top of the line chairs like the Haworth Fern, Herman Miller Embody, and Steelcase Leap, I can honestly say that I'd be perfectly content with the Haworth Soji as my daily driver. In fact, I've been using the Soji for 8+ hours every day for a few months now, and I've been perfectly happy with it. So I hope you guys found this review helpful, and if you did, I'd really appreciate it if you hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. And if you're still undecided on a chair and want a personal recommendation from me, you can feel free to leave me a comment down below, or you can feel free to check out some of my other comprehensive chair reviews by clicking here.